Well, good afternoon, everybody. I'm Meteorologist Nick Stewart. We have quite the interesting outlook for weather as we head deeper and deeper into the month of January. The confidence of below normal temperatures, potentially some stormier weather as well, is increasing. The models have really started to hone in on it the last couple of days, and the latest guidance today really started to jump on the bandwagon. So we're going to jump through all sorts of different weather models, different products to kind of break down what may be looming here in the not so distant future. I want to start off with one product called the NAFIS. It's kind of an analog and climatological approach to looking at a forecast using the 12Z products that we have. This kind of gives a probability of what will be below normal temperatures. And we're looking at week 2. So this is centered, as you can kind of see, that's January 20th through the 26th. And the confidence for below normal temperatures for like the eastern United States, that's rather high. I mean, you're talking about 60 to 80% there for much of the eastern United States at week 2. So pretty high confidence that we will be dealing with a pretty big blast of cold air as we head towards the latter part of January. The air itself, when you kind of run a backwards trajectory as to where the air is actually coming from, it's deep in the Arctic, borderline Siberia. So that's kind of where the air will be coming from as we head towards around the January, let's say maybe 19th through about 26th. That seems to be kind of the period of weather that looks the most interesting in the short term. So a lot to look at here. We'll start off with just the official products from the government sites, the NOAA sites. Here's a Climate Prediction Center outlook for your 8 to 14 day temperatures. Again, huge area of below normal temperatures with the exception of Florida down there. Florida will be sitting actually above normal before things trend. After this, it looks like you got some pretty cold in Florida. But, I mean, you can already see they're kind of honing in on that likelihood for below normal temperatures. Looking at the hazards, the extended hazards outlook, when you look at the risk for hazardous temperatures on the cold side, they're already outlining vast areas of a slight risk for hazardous cold temperatures. And this is regionally specific. So what is cold in, say, Iowa in January is not the same as what's cold in Georgia in January. So these products are actually kind of updated and graded regionally specific. And that's kind of the same for the snowfall product. Again, snow in Tennessee, that's a risk of heavy snowfall. But what's heavy in Tennessee is not the same as what's heavy in Iowa. Just want to point that out, the caveat, if you do see these types of images. For example, like 2 inches of Atlanta is like the equivalent of, say, like a foot in Iowa. Just roughly kind of putting that out there. So if you see these graphics, there's some context I think you do need to know to kind of look at them. Either way, the pattern itself looks pretty cold. Here's a look at the European ensemble. This is basically 50 different members. We run the same model 50 different times, and it's averaged together to kind of give you an overall potential outcome of what may be coming. And when you see this, this is a very high confidence forecast in a big troughiness, the big trough in the eastern United States. That would bring the cold air to the eastern United States, as well as potential stormy weather near the base of that trough. That would pretty much be the southeast United States as the most likely area of some more active and turbulent weather. This is one of the more impressive anomaly maps I have ever seen. So again, we're talking about a forecast upwards of 9 days out. A lot can change between now and then. However, when you're looking at these anomaly maps showing this type of potential for being below normal, we're talking about temperatures around 15 to 20 degrees below normal for portions of the country at day 9. And this, again, is an average of 50 different models. That's a pretty high confidence outlook in below normal temperatures. Now, the smaller details of just how cold will it be, how cold will the highs be, that is kind of remains to be seen at this point. But what we can tell you is that as we get closer and closer to this time frame, and again, if you are just popping in, we're talking about that window roughly January 19th through the 25th. We're talking about below normal temperatures. Big shot of cold air there. Taking the model approach and looking at analog. Sorry, I'm battling a bit of a cold here, by the way. Look at the analog approach. So this looks at the model data that's given, and then it looks at historic events. And it kind of compares the top 15, or in this case, the top 105 analogs, and it averages out together what the potential outcome would be. So it's kind of using model data, but then also pulling in historical data to kind of compare it against. And what you're looking at there, this is centered January 20th through the 23rd, and right around the Great Lakes region, through like the Ohio Valley. That's a huge shot there of temperatures of at least 15 degrees below normal for this time of year. And that's a huge area of below normal for much of the country. And we're talking like Tampa, Florida, up through Maine, and out towards like the Pac Northwest. So big area of confidence in below normal temperatures. But again, at this range, around day 9, just how cold it will be kind of remains to be seen. So let's look at the potential for being sub-zero. So these are minimum temperatures or low temperatures during the daytime. The probability of dipping below 0. And again, this is using the analog, so the European analog, or the European ensemble. And this shows you, based on all the ensembles, what is the probability of being sub-zero. And when you're looking at, again, at this range, we're pretty far out. This is like next Wednesday, or next Monday, Tuesday is when things really begin to go downhill. The probabilities of like sub-zero temperatures for much of the Great Lakes, potentially down to like the Ohio River Valley. I mean, you're pushing already 60, 70, and then further north up towards, the UP of Michigan, up towards northern Minnesota, already like 90 to 95% chance. So we are seeing that probability kind of increase with time, that we're talking about a very big shot of cold temperatures. So again, now looking at from the analog approach, this is your analog, so looking at historic nature of events and comparing it to what the models are showing, looking at the top 105 closest analogs, the probabilities of, again, sub-zero temperatures for much of the Great Lakes and Midwest, I mean, that's over 70% for a huge area. So again, the confidence in the cool down in a big shot of cold air, it's pretty high at this point in time. We pretty much know it's going to get very cold. But the smaller fine details of just how cold and just how long will it last and how cold will the wind chills be, that will kind of be hammered out and ironed out here in the next several days as we get closer to this event, which again really kind of kicks off around that January 19th through 25th timeframe, kind of roughly in that window. Now, when looking at the precipitation, a lot of the Midwest is thinking, well, you got a big shot of cold air. What's the winter weather outlook? What's that snow look like? Not great. So again, looking at the ensemble approach, when you look at the 24-hour average precipitation, and we're stepping through this year, we're going through like January 18th, 19th, 20th through the 21st. And what you can see is most of the precipitation is primarily near the southeastern mid-Atlantic region of the United States. A lot of Great Lakes lake effect snow potential up there as well. That's definitely a possibility and a likelihood with a really cold air, assuming the lakes don't get frozen over between now and then. But the highlights for that precipitation really look like kind of the southeast United States in towards the mid-Atlantic. And so we're looking at that increasingly likelihood of some stronger winter storms out that way. Whether that's snow, maybe sleet, or ice, or severe weather, all those details are very low confidence at this point. So what I want to show you here, and I want to stress, this is not a model forecast for snowfall necessarily. This is what I call the reasonable worst case scenario. So out of the European ensemble, it's the 90th percentile. So near the top, the worst case out of that ensemble. So you run the model 50 different times, the top 10% of snowfall. This is kind of what that shows. And what you're looking at there is like much of the Midwest kind of absent of snow. Like Iowa looked really absent of snow. Nebraska, Missouri, not really showing much here between now and January 24th. And then you look at the southeast United States, that's where you start seeing that snowfall begin to potentially show up. So that's where you could potentially see some wintry weather. I think even this is on the high end, obviously. This is, again, the reasonable worst case scenario. You might already be seeing these very scary models online showing like 2 feet of snow in North Carolina. The probability of that happening is so insignificant. Really, really think about clicking that share button or that retweet button, depending on your social media platform, when you see these really scary images. When you look at the reasonable worst case scenario, those values are like 2 to 3 inches for portions of the southeast towards the Carolinas. Gets a little bit more interesting up towards the northeast and mid-Atlantic, but again, a lot of these details will have to be kind of ironed out in the next several days. One thing I do want to wrap up on is not only are we talking about that potential for maybe some wintry weather, but when you're talking about a really big trough in the jet stream and above normal temperatures in Florida, that indication maybe some moisture in place and warmer temperatures in the southeast, you have some potential for severe weather as well. So we're looking at a very long-term forecast. Again, we're about a week or more away. This is centered around January 17th through like the 19th. And we're starting to see a bit of an increasingly likelihood of maybe some severe weather. This just shows, again, the potential based on the analogs of what could be unfolding in the southeast United States. Anytime you got a big trough in the jet stream, you cannot rule out the severe weather side of things. And it's already kind of hinting at that potential there in like Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, up into Florida. So we're watching it very closely. These smaller, fine details will become much, much clearer as we go through time. But again, the main takeaway is that in the short term, things are likely going to get pretty darn cold for much of the United States, and it's all going to become with a big old trough coming through the eastern United States. I want to wrap up again with the NOAA outlook. This is your 8 to 14 day official outlook from the Climate Prediction Center. And you're looking at that very high chance for below normal temperatures across a huge portion of the United States. That's as that big old trough, big old bowling ball comes kicking out through the United States. In terms of where the air is coming from, kind of a bit of a backwards trajectory. So where the air is coming from, starting around January 19th, you can see it goes all the way up through the Arctic, potentially all the way over towards like Siberia. So a big shot of that cold air is coming towards the northern plains. Don't get too caught up on just, the extreme wind chills you might see in a graphic 9 days out, or the crazy amount of snow you might see in a graphic 9 days out. Just know that the pattern looks very interesting and volatile going forward. There's a big trough. That's a pretty high confidence forecast in a big old trough. And your anomaly graphs, again, when you're looking at the potential temperature anomalies out 9 days in advance on an ensemble forecast, upwards of 15 degrees plus below normal, that's pretty high confidence that things are going to go downhill. Haven't seen a whole lot of questions popping in, so don't have any much to answer. If you do have a last second question, though, happy to answer that. Cheryl says Missouri is watching. Yeah, Missouri, again, looking at the potential for the really cold air coming in that way. Nathan, much appreciated. Acronym, thank you very much as well for tuning on in. Again, we're watching it very closely. A lot will change between now and then, but you're likely going to start seeing this starting to be talked about a lot more. Really curious to see how natural gas pricing changes tomorrow. It was looking pretty likely that a shot of cold air was coming. I'm kind of curious what that's going to do tomorrow. Anyway, that's a whole other detail, finer scale detail. Thanks for watching, everybody. Hope you have a wonderful rest of the weekend. For those on the Space Coast, don't forget, New Glenn tonight. Hopefully, fingers crossed. I'm excited. Have a great evening, everybody. Stay safe, stay warm, and we'll see you again next time. Thanks for tuning in.